All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Hi, my name is Travis Kaufman. I'm a developer for PureCloud. And one of my main focus, or my team's main focus, is what we call the PureCloud Embeddable framework. It sounds kind of like a mouthful, but the whole core motto behind it is simplifying the process of building awesome integration. So, you all have PureCloud orgs, you all have probably other systems that you're working with. Getting those to talk together, to have a great tight integration on those can definitely be challenging at times. So we'll just kind of jump in. So, you have those multiple diverse systems. A lot of times you have a CRM system, a lot of times you have other systems that you want to integrate with a ticketing software, a customer relationship, case management, the list can go on, finance and billing, all of those. You have reasons that your agents are using every day, your business users need access to all that data. So that could be confusing. And so being able to have a single desktop, a single workspace that the user's using, working in day in, day out, is kind of a dream, right? They don't have to have flip between multiple tabs, they don't have to worry about context switching as much. It's just all kind of the workflow is flowing through them in a single workspace. So now you want to embed your telephony, let's say it's telephony. So what do you need to do to start from scratch? Well, obviously you need to be pretty familiar with our public APIs and our contracts and kind of what we do as a telephony provider. So you need to have decent understanding of the conversations API. And those APIs can change depending on the type that you're working with. Chats, calls, emails, dialer interactions. Those all have different endpoints that you need to be familiar with, understand how they're used, what the benefits of the different types are. You obviously need presence too. You need to be able to go on queue, you need to be able to go on break, control for WFM, WFO reportings as well. You need notifications because, let's be honest, you don't want your agents to have to refresh every time that they want that, to see if they have a new interaction or if they have their status changes. So you want real-time notifications, subscriptions, updates into the UI. So you're connecting with it real-time or carrier pigeon, Hawk. We have a few different ways. Analytics. Probably want how am I doing today from an agent's perspective or even from a supervisor's perspective? How's my team doing? What's the queue status? Is this queue overloaded today? Should I not transfer it to that queue? Should I, maybe try to find a different person to help with it? Because maybe that person's overloaded. You're doing a direct transfer to a person. Probably want to do a type ahead for queues. Make it a little bit simpler so you can do a direct transfer to queues. You can actually call the queue, DTMF, things like that. And the list keeps going. I'm not going to go into all of them, but there's a lot of things like WebRTC. You have to get familiar with that, make sure you handle the signaling and binding correctly. And that's just for the telephony piece. We haven't even talked about, you guys have to be the experts in your own CRM systems or your homegrown financial systems, whatever you're wanting to tie together. You guys are the experts in that, but you're the only ones. So it sounds like a lot, right? That's kind of where we come in. So introducing the PureCloud Embeddable framework. So this is the same client that we use to power our internal in-house PureCloud for Salesforce, PureCloud for Zendesk, and PureCloud for browsers, so Firefox and Chrome. So we have a roughly 15 to 20% of all PureCloud users are using one of those embeddable framework integrations. So it's tested, it's tried and true. We support it throughout every day. So we're constantly adding new features to it as well. So as the platform adds new features, it's going in here. So it's staying up to date with API version updates and things like that. So key agent features for the client. You need to handle those interactions, whether it's a chat, a call, SMS, or a dialer. You need to be able. The agent needs to be able to handle whatever work item is presented to them, right? So you have to build that out. The UI has to be built out. So we try to be very concise with the real estate that we use because we know we're being embedded. So you're working multiple real estates out of premium, right? You can't take out as much real estate as you sometimes need to try to condense things down, simplify it, just so what the agents need to work in their day in to day out. We do status management, phone selection, WebRTC, call logging. Get to that a little bit more because that's kind of a generic verbiage. But the goal behind all this is to simplify the development of integrations. We can't create an integration in-house for everyone, especially homegrown CRM systems, things like that. So we need to empower you guys to do it. So the brief architecture in a very simple picture of what the client looks like in its most simplified form is there on the right. So the client itself is just all static HTML and JavaScript. There is no extra backend services or things like that that need to be spun up on a reservation basis. It's all using the PureCloud public API. It's all using the latest versions of those APIs so that we don't have to worry about version changes and things like that. So just static HTML. We live here. The external system, contacting those external APIs down here in the corner, that's where the framework comes into play because that's the piece that whoever's integrating this and trying to tie it in with their system, that's the piece that they're going to have to build out. So we've exposed, I think, around 12 hooks to kind of make that easier, to simplify what that looks like. And so we have default behavior, but then also kind of helps it flow through the UI itself. So I'm not going to go over all these right now, but we'll quickly zoom through them because they're also showed in the demo and in the actual files. We'll show them in a second. But click to dial, click to email. So you have phone numbers, you have emails, you have all of that in your contact center in your solution. We have easy methods to tie that in, so I'm not going to place that call inside of PureCloud. We'll place that email in PureCloud, get that started, so that you don't have to copy and paste and move it over. You don't have to try to remember what it was and type it out again, back into something, dial in other ones, because I seem to do that a lot. It just, click to dial just makes it so much faster, so much easier. Interaction attributes, so you can monitor specific custom interaction attributes that you do, either that you've added on inside of the IVR, that you've added on through contact list, or you've had flows just added on just because of how it can handle. So you can add that actual display in your UI, similar to how scripts are, but kind of surfaced in that more narrow real estate that we have today. We do have some events so that you don't have to always tie up to your own real-time or carrier pigeon streaming subscription, so you can listen to our subscription services as well. We will broadcast off interaction state change information. We'll broadcast off user-specific events such as status change, and even things like view navigation. So if you're trying to keep what the user's looking at inside of us and what the user's looking at inside of the CRM system, such as they're going to a settings page or they're going to language selection changing pages, you can keep those all in sync by listening to that, because anytime they go to it, we can broadcast it off and you can change the view over as well. And then we do the call logging events. So we'll get into that. Screen pop, surfacing, that CRM data as soon as the interaction goes alerting. We'll parse off the phone number. We'll also parse off those additional attributes you're asking us to look for, and then we'll send that all over to you guys. And you guys can handle it in whatever system you want to. You can pop to that page, do associations, maybe do extra computations to like log or track it in different manners. Workspace transfer, just so that you can easily attach additional information when you transfer an interaction, so that you can try to keep the contacts between the first agent to the second agent, or I say agent, but you could be business user, just be related. We have interaction and user status controls. Obviously, you've got to be able to pick up and disconnect a phone call, right? I mean, if you can't, we're not doing our jobs right. Got to be able to go on queue so that you say you abide by the WFO. But you can also script some of that. And the reason we allow for that to be scripted is maybe you're trying to keep two external systems in sync. So maybe you have, let's use Salesforce as an example. Salesforce has their own concept of stacks. And so you can get Salesforce work items, you can get PureCloud work items. Well, you probably don't want those going over at the same time, being activated in the queue, even when you're already working. So you can programmatically set the status, set the script, or set the agent status to working on PureCloud or Salesforce case or something like that, so that you can kind of help user utilization a little bit better. And then we give some brief access to the session token, so that you can call other methods when needed. One of the biggest features that we see in-house is that this leverages the ongoing development in the core client. So this isn't a separate thing that we're trying to keep updated and we're going to be behind when new features come out. We're saying it's 6, 7 months, 8 months before we'll even look at it or get to it. We try to stay pretty up to date on what the full director client has, but also this is the same client we use for those other integrations. So we want in-house, we want those to be the best that we can. So we're trying to keep that library up completely up to date and try to expose as many of those features as possible. And then, yeah, kind of what I said, as new media types get added, they'll automatically appear just like they appear in the other integrations today and the whole client today. So I think we just released WhatsApp, just kind of went out the door, so that was as full as the embed framework as well. So how it works. So the first thing you have to do is we want this scoped to the partner specifically. Whoever's doing the implementation, we want everything scoped so that we can A, monitor it, but B, API limits, things like that, those are all scoped into the same realm. So you have to create an OAuth token, or OAuth client inside of PureCloud. And that OAuth client, you then will copy and paste that client ID in your code. But that also tell you a redirect URL, because if you publish this for the app as an App Foundry partner, where other people can purchase it, other customers can purchase it, you will get your own dedicated URL. So it'll usually say the integration's name in the URL, so it's just very specific. If that's the only file it'll ever load, it'll never be able to be used in Salesforce. It'll only be able to be used in your customer. So the next thing you got to do is how all of this works is we live in an iframe. Sounds like a dirty word sometimes, but we live in an iframe, so you have to add an iframe to your site. So however you want to do that, a lot of CRM vendors already have a way to iframe materials that they want to bring in. So you iframe your specific URL. If you're an App Foundry vendor, or you iframe the generic URL if you're still doing your development, or if you're using what we're going to call, and which is released soon, which is the private embeddable framework, which is going to just your organization. Then you create a framework file. We'll get some more on that, because that's where the fun happens, because that's where you get to actually implement the methods that you want to use in your app. So this can be really short. The shortest framework file I've seen is 3 lines. The longest one I've seen is like 150. I don't like the 150 one, but it's fine. It's fun. They're doing a lot of complex things and some retrain logic, so it's pretty cool. If you're at a Foundry partner, you have to submit it for review. There's a few reasons we do this. A, security. B, you're selling. So we want to provide additional guarantees to our customers that the file's just not going to disappear, that it's not going to be changed out from underneath them without, some type of change management process. And then in those cases, we host the JavaScript file for you. So you don't have to have it hosted in another web service or anything like that. That has to do with a lot of cross-domain scripting issues and Internet Explorer and things like that. We want to be a little bit more safe, a little bit more secure with some of that. And then that's it. We actually pull that client, or once you iframe to send, we'll pull that JavaScript file in. We know where it's located, and then we start using it. And it can be that simple. So, you guys are good? Any questions so far? If not, I'm going to jump into a little bit of a demo, dive a little bit into the framework file that I said we were going to skip a little bit to. and kind of see how we go from there. Yeah?
Does it support only the client side, or I can build the agent side to application?
So most of the functionality is specific to agents. We don't have a lot of functionality specific to supervisors or admins, and it is all client side. Like none of it should be running server side. Like it's all just a client side application that works with that pulls in that static HTML and JavaScript files.
Yeah. You mentioned click-to-down. Does that incorporate click-to-transfer?
Can you say that again? Sorry.
You said click-to-down.
Click-to-down, yeah.
Could you do click-to-transfer?
So we do not have click-to-transfer today. That is something that we've heard off and on. There's a few. It's something that we can definitely look at exposing inside of the partner frameworks. Where we haven't seen it is we haven't gotten a lot of inside like the CRMs that we deal with the most. It's a weird flow, and we haven't been able to nail down like the exact flow for every case, right? Because discerning if that click is supposed to be a click to dial or a click to transfer if you're already on a call, what if you need a second call, right? What if you're going to just double click these two people in the conference and together? So like that's where there's some ambiguity there, and we've chosen not to tackle it yet. But if you have some good use cases, and that's definitely something that it's much easier to implement in the partner framework, and you guys can specify to your specific case because maybe you have another screen in there that you would like. That's definitely easy to do. Definitely good to do.
Be careful when they're stepping back.
Oh,
I'm getting real.
It wouldn't be the first time I fell off stage. Anything else? I think someone. Okay. Oh, yep.
Yeah, so in terms of the process, so there's a step to submit our code for you to review before you put it on your server.
Mm-hmm.
There an SLA around that. For example, I submit maybe Eastern time, I don't know, 12 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And they're guaranteed that you will return that back either with some defects or successful review and all that around that, so that we can build in our change management procedure.
Yeah, so once you submit a file, if you're going down the partner route, once you submit a file, we do require possibly up to a week to actually deploy your file out. And the reason is it takes time for security to review it. We review it to make sure that you're not doing anything terrible with it, like pulling in bad things or trying to broadcast off passwords or anything like that. And that's just all really bad. And then the framework files always deploy on Tuesdays, Thursdays, roughly at 11 p.m. Eastern-ish, and then that gets propagated out across the world. So we do try to, we look at it as soon as we get it. Usually we responded within a day-ish if we have a problem with it. If not, usually we're just waiting for it to go through the official change management process and then slate it for Tuesday, Thursday deploy. Anything else? Cool. All right, let's jump into a demo. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to shout them out, and I'll try to answer them. So the first page I'm going to show, that is super wide. First page I'm going to show is this page. So this is hosted on GitHub. This is a very simplistic page. This is all in the slides. The slides should be available to you after the presentation, so you don't have to try to remember links or anything. But this is a very simple page that can shows those exposed methods that we have and how they actually work with the client. So the client, you can see, is embedded here. All the code needed. This is the framework file that is actually powering that entire page, which shows, I would say, 80% of the functionality that we've exposed. And it's about 100, right at 100 lines. But it's changing some settings. You can see this is where we get client ID. You give it a name so that we can generate that nice URL for you for your specific vendor. That makes it any better. we have a bunch of different options. So, we do support WebRTC in this. So, you have the ability to embed WebRTC or have it in a standalone pop-out. Sounds weird. Why have a standalone pop-out? Well, if you page refresh and you're on a WebRTC call, that's bad. You drop the call, right? I mean, the web browser is the one holding on to that call. So you need to pop it out, have something that's persistent that isn't going to refresh. So if you're in a CRM that's not a single page app and that it's actually going to navigate around and get full page refreshes, you probably should be using a popped out WebRTC window. But if you're in a single page application, never expect a page refresh, you know what? Get rid of that window. It's one less thing to worry about, and it just makes everything a little more streamlined. We have enabled call logging. This one is by default enabling work transfer context. So if I say agent 1 needs to escalate to the supervisor, he can transfer the entire context of his workspace to the supervisor, pop it back open so the supervisor knows what's going on. Right? So the supervisor doesn't have to reopen those cases, contexts, whatever it is. It just kind of gets that supervisor up to speed a little bit quicker. You can also, if you're not using things like subjects or relations, you can also remove them. So the UI it's not visible, less confusing to users and users. You can set your search targets. This is less important up here because there's a method that you have to use to actually return the search targets. But inside of PureCloud, you can search content, or you can search people and queues, right? In the type edit search. Super useful, but most of the time you're not searching for people internally, you're probably searching for people externally, right? And where does your external data live? Your CRM. So now you can propagate some of that CRM data inside the UI and in those type edit searches, and we'll send that off. You tell us what you want to display, you display it. You can also limit it to say, I never want my people to you should never be transferring straight to a person, remove the people, and never do a type edit search for a person. You can still call it there in the number, but we won't do any type filtering for that. And then you can theme it. And this is my personal favorite because I kind of like colors. But the thing is, does it look weird to have like a bright purple CRM, but then you have this weird black or blue little widget that's sitting down there? So you can theme it to be the color of your CRM, so to make it more seamless. So you can see on this page, it's the default black and new blue, so it's kind of there. It doesn't look bad, but then bright blue CRM is probably not going to be great. Or this is a kind of a fake CRM I've created. This is also on GitHub. This will show a more realistic example of how you would create a framework.js file, what one of those would actually look like. But it's a purple CRM, which the theme of our conference is purple. So the client's purple. So it flows better. Nothing stands out. It doesn't feel awkward. It helps kind of just blend everything together. So going through here, you can see you initialize. There's a few reasons for initialization. The first thing is we're loading your file dynamically. And what does that mean? You may want to get your settings dynamically. Because you have to upload a single file, but you may have 20 customers. And they all may have slightly different needs. You may have different agents inside the same customer that has different needs. So you may want some of those settings to be dynamic. Once we load your file, there's a 30-second window before we sign out. And so if you want to dynamically load your settings and say if you want to dynamically load your settings on a per user basis, you can actually post those across or send those over however you want to send those over, and then load that file dynamically that way. And you get roughly 30 seconds to do that. If you don't respond within 30 seconds, we say that there's a problem connecting to your CRM system. You can refresh, you can log out, or it says that you can also contact the administrator. Because you really should, typical agents should never see that. Developers will see it all the time. But typical agent or user should never see that way. Other than that, so let's look at the demo. So here you'll see the first action that we have exposed is click to dial. So super simple. I click on, I've had that highlighted, I clicked on it, it actually went across. What's happening under the scenes, and I won't go do this for all of them, but you can actually see from the example file, we have an element. We have click to call, I give it an ID of click to dial. And so if I go to the framework, I've added a listener on click to dial. And this listener broadcasts off a Windows post message. That Windows post message will be listened to by the actual framework file. And right here. So he's just listening for all the messages. If it's one of the messages we care about, we know how to handle it. So then we just call the PureCloud, clicks it out, places the call, everything's goes through the system, and you can it'll attach all the data to it as well. So what's nice about this is you can do a simple click to dial, but you can also make it more advanced so that you can add click to dial based off queue, so you can define a specific queue. If you want that to happen, you can also add additional attributes to it, so that those get automatically added to the interaction or the conversation model as soon as it's created, and then that can be used to flow through the system, and it will be your system. Add associations, you can see the payload that we have here. There's two types of associations that we have, and associations are used for call logs. The two types of associations we have are contacts and related items. So once you've added one, actually let's call it so it's live. You can tell it to automatically select it, which is the select equal true, but you can see it's automatically popped it up in the window associated there. And now anytime that we send a process call log event, we'll send those associations across with it as well. And now you can create an activity that is associated to, you can create a log that is what is it associated to. So, is it associated, who called it, right? So, did I get a screen pop? Can I tell who this was before? That's cool. It'll add those associations. What's this about? Get a case, create a ticket, however that happens in your CRM system. Now you've logged that. You can, as it's saved, you can make that relationship no matter what. You don't just have call records, interaction IDs, and queues. You can actually tie that with, the accounts, or you can tie that with the contacts. We use the word contact in relations because theoretically one should be a contact, but the other thing can be anything, right? It could be a lead, it could be whatever you guys want to do. Custom attributes, I'm not going to click that button because I know it's going to fail. The reason is you can see you have to tell it the interaction ID. So payload requires the interaction ID, and then once we know that interaction ID, what you want to add, we'll update the attributes on the interaction ID with a specific data. Transfer context. So if I do have this open, which I'll click this button a lot because the line only stays open for 37 seconds. It's a quick weather line did, so it's fine. But if I have the transfer window open, you can see I can add transfer context to it. And so what will happen is that will go across, and then we will try to attempt to use that as the default screen pop. It'll be fully exposed to you, so you can use it however you want, but we'll send all of that transfer context over as part of that default screen pop that we broadcast as well. The search options, like I said, you may want to expose your CRM data inside of there. So how you do it is as you're doing a type ahead, you get a certain amount of time. I think we have it set to 7 seconds today to respond with the appropriate, 15 seconds today, to respond with the appropriate data. And then it'll add that to the dropdown. And so you'll have a unique icon, it'll show the name, whatever you specified it as, and the phone type. And so that'll go in there, then you can click on it, and then it'll just place the call because of that phone. Like I said, we do allow for programmatic setting of status. It's really easy. So click the button, change my status to away, pretty straightforward. But things that can get really complicated. And the main use behind this is for like an omni-channel, omni-routing, unified status. That's similar. So if you have two statuses you're trying to keep in sync, getting requirements from two different systems, because sometimes it happens, you know, you can programmatically set that status and try to keep things in line. User view, you can also, like I said, you can specify the view and you can be told about the view. So like you can be taken to the settings, call log, and that's all using just that standard messaging that goes down, tell what view you want it to be on, and go that way. And then we'll go to the events. So, like I said, we broadcast off some events, some subscription events, and some just normal events. So we have screen pop events, so if I get an inbound call, or I'll do a chat. Let me do that. If I get a chat, which I'll do right here, and I go on queue, you can see we were broadcasted on the screen pop event. The reason we do the screen pop event is it's an aggregation of direction, what we think we should screen pop, so usually the remote number, the phone number, the email address, whatever we have, we try to condense that down. But we also make sure it's only recorded once. Because if you're watching for carrier vision or if you're watching for real time, you get a lot of messages and you'll get the same alerting message multiple times. So you have to know when to filter it out and how you handle this one, things like that. You could listen just for alerting messages, but you get any of those. We also handle wrap up in here, so we pull in all the wrap ups. Process call logging, like I said, so we fire off this event anytime the interaction state has changed. So hold, disconnect, pick up, we'll fire that off. Anytime that they've hit this button, which is meant to be like more of a save / taken to the whatever you've created, it'll fire it off with whatever's changed. We won't fire it off if nothing has changed since the last time we've been told. We want to save cycles. We want to save you guys time. We want to save us time. And then, like I said, you can start listening to the raw events for the user's interactions and just notifications. If there's certain things that aren't there, you can listen straight to the events and keep going that way. So if you look, this example project is pretty straightforward. It has no dependencies. It's raw JavaScript and HTML, which is sometimes painful, but it's pretty easy to follow. So, you know, it's as simple as possible. Don't try to obfuscate anything, but it works. But we know this isn't a realistic implementation, right? I mean, that page was too dumbed down, too straightforward, it was too small. So that's where the second example comes in. So the second example is a fake CRM system. I created this over the weekend-ish. And I'm a huge fan of Scooby-Doo. So use Scooby-Doo as my theme. Purples, oranges, brown's kind of ugly up in the corner, but we'll get past that. But we have accounts, so we have people, we have contacts in here, which are right here. We have issues. So this could be, you know, a case, a task, something like that. What's the issue? What's the problem? And then we have what we're calling as activities. And activities are those call logs. So anytime they have notes or they want to add notes to the wrap up, if they can write the wrap up, all of that will come across and get saved here. So you can see I took a chat at 11:23 this morning. You can see more information around like Zed Perkins and things like that. And then here's the client. This I would say is a typical agent view. You know, they have access to their contacts, their issues, things like that. They also have access to the phone. how they're actually going to handle it. Now let's talk about the settings. So these have interesting projectors to kind of show them some of the CSS. The settings are definable in here, and that'll actually translate it over because, like I said, a lot of times you'll have slightly different use cases for different parts of your business, for different people, for different companies. So having those dynamic settings are kind of actually important. So you can specify that, and then they'll be sent across every time the app requests them. And then you can change the color on the fly and things like that. You can also change between the ideal promotion path for creating a framework file is you start local. You add a query string parameter and then try to load in a file that's hosted at localhost, and it's just framework.js file. And that's how you can do your development. You just go to the URL, add that query string parameter, we'll start pulling it in. Pretty easy, fairly straightforward. When it doesn't work, let us know. But that's that first stage. That really only works for developers, right? Now you want to talk about testing or staging environment to make sure you've worked out all the kinks. That's where what's being released soon, and it is open for beta, is the private embeddable framework. So the private embeddable framework is the next stage, and what that is it's gated to just your organization. You still upload the file, but no one can have access to it unless you're in the organization you have the correct permission. It's very similar to client apps, if you guys are familiar with how the client apps work, where it's queue members or group membership is actually what's gating it. So you have to be a member of the group. It has to be enabled using the integrations tag in the admin UI, and that's also where you upload that version of your staged framework file. So, and then there's production. And so production is where you'll finally go if you're an App Foundry partner, you give that vanity URL, that very specific URL to your app only. It'll load that instead of iframe instead of everything else. Those are typically apps.mypurecloud.com/CRM/ whatever your app name is. And so, if you're Salesforce, it's Salesforce. If you're Zendesk, it's Zendesk. And that's kind of the ideal promotion strategy. It's like with that private embeddable framework, now you have something to test without having to be pushed out to production. So let's see one of these actually work. I'll go ahead and take another chat. I'm on cue. So you saw that I got a screen pop. Is that correct now? I got a screen pop. It's a chat. So I did specify some advanced screen pop attributes. So custom attributes I said let's watch for or mystery type and mystery ID. So we go here. So once those came in, we said, well, let's use those for the screen pop. So we pop to the contacts page for that ID. You're probably wondering where I got that ID. If you were in Richard Schott's presentation right beforehand, we talked about data actions. And so data actions, you can do a REST request out to your third-party CRM, out to any network capable and return that back. So a lot of the use cases are you do that, you find out what the customer is, you tag that on the interaction, you screen pop to that so that it kind of bypasses who are you, because they may have put that in MVR, they may have, if you can just find a phone number, that's all over. It makes it just more information. From there, you can see I do have an interaction log. So now minor Fortinanger is in here. You can say he's probably lost in the desert, desert gold mine, he needs help. So now you can associate that as well. He's not really lost. And I'm just going to hang out with him. He's fine. And he's not So if you look at this activity, it created the activity. It was put as an inbound June 11th, which is today. And it put that subject in there. So here you can see it wrote a little bit more data than what we were showing, but it wrote basically like what queue it came in on, interaction ID, and that's important because now you can do like deep linking into the full directory client or like call recordings and things like that. So just kind of how to tie them together. You know, agents probably aren't listening to call recordings, but supervisors are. So now you have a really quick, easy way to get to all of that data. And then you have the association, so you can quickly kind of jump to what that was. To just give more context sort of that. So that's kind of the idea behind the CRM web framework, or the PureCloud Embeddable framework. It's to simplify that process. Here is what this framework.js file looks like that powered that fake CRM that we have. So the first thing I did was a little bit of polyfill because in Internet Explorer, console is not defined. So if you're going to use console messages, always make sure you have some type of polyfill for it. Broadcasting out to stars is terrible. It's a security risk. Never do it unless you have to. Don't do it. So you should be told what domain you want to broadcast it off to. So that I'm using query string parameter right now. There's slightly better ways to do it, but we'll allow it for now. I'll allow my example. Like, it's not worth fixing. And then we go into the framework file. So the first thing that happens is, realistically, we post a message up to the parent domain saying, hey, give me my settings. And this is because I said I want to do the settings dynamically because different people may have different settings. So I say, I just loaded, I need my settings. Then they post back to him. The parent app says, all right, I have all my settings, I looked at my configuration, here's what I have for you. And so then that defined setup framework. So inside setup framework, simple console login, it just registers for window.framework and it defines it there. That's all it really takes for us to actually load the framework file. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for window.framework, and then we're looking for that initial setup method. Because we'll call that, so if there's anything you need to do after we're fully set up, we'll tell you, we're fully set up, now you're good to go. So there's it's kind of a handshake back and forth. Subscribing to those interaction events, the reason is for notifications. I'm using that to pop that secondary interaction window because that's where the chat actually lives. That's where all the chat details will live, and then tell how to be maintained. Defining the screen pop, process call log, and call log, and my settings. And that's really it. That's what powered that. So this is, like I said, it's a little right under 100 lines. And it's a realistic implementation. I say that, but knowing with those currently submitted partner frameworks, most of them are, these are the features we're using. We kind of tried to aggregate what features we've exposed with what the demand has been and what requests that we've gotten. And these are the 90%, which is a little interesting. Any questions?
I have a question. So
Yeah.
if I have a secure IVR, will that be able to show up on the client?
What do you mean by?
So, because when I'm the agent,
So like you transfer to a secure IVR?
Yeah.
Yeah. So as of today, we do not have a visual indicator that you're in a secure IVR. You can transfer to a secure IVR perfectly fine, and use the script window for that.
So the script window will show up in the embedded client.
It'll show up in that secondary window. Yes.
Secondary window.
So let me give it a try again. So this is the secondary window. Where this chat shows up is also where your script would show up. And so if you're using secure IVR, currently secure IVR is exposed through the scripting engine.
And if it's a call, like it works the same way, right?
Absolutely, yeah. This is the only, we have two windows. You have the main client window, you have the secondary interaction window, because of saving on space. Yep.
So currently, we actually embed our own CRM within PureCloud Cloud app. The downside of that is we have less control over PureCloud's app, of course. If we were to choose this option, embed PureCloud in our own CRM, the downside then becomes screen recording. I don't know if it's on the roadmap or if they support that.
It does not actively support it today on its own. If you have the PureCloud desktop app installed on the computer and signed in, it will do the screen recordings as well. And we do have a couple customers that are using that today because it's recording the entire screen. But with just the embeddable framework, screen recording is not supported today. Is it on the roadmap? I honestly can't say. I don't know. It's been talked over. We've had multiple conversations over it, but it's one of those things. It's actually very complicated once we're only in the browser 100%, and that's the only place we live. Because recording multiple screens, multiple tabs gets a little bit more hairy.
Okay. Another question is that everything seems nice only if we don't need to build it ourselves.
Yeah.
Is it possible that, let's say, you host some kind of generic version and we just need to customize that a little bit, minimize the maintenance of that embedded framework ourselves, so that we don't need to submit JavaScript ourselves every time to maintain change, so to simplify our own kind of workflow in general?
Yeah, so that's more where the PureCloud embeddable client, the private embeddable client comes in, where it's tied to your specific work. So that framework file, I didn't show you this one. This is the minimum amount of definition that you need to actually get it to run. You need a client ID. You don't actually need the settings or default it to off, but I put settings there just so it was there. And you need to define initial setup. Then you can go from there. And then you can build upon it there. So like this is the minimum. We do have a minimum. Everything here is documented in our developer.mypurecloud.com documentation. So we have a few walkthroughs. We also have a couple links to the different example projects for it. But I would say this is the minimum, and that's where I would start. Because as soon as you have this, and if you're using a private version, it's already scoped to your org. So you don't really need a generic because you're using your own, and you can start customizing it there.
Can you talk a bit more about that private embeddable framework?
Yeah, so the reason you're not familiar is it's not officially released. It just went beta a week or so ago, and so we are taking a few open beta requests. But it is very similar to PureCloud custom apps, the custom app framework, the client app framework. And so it's all ran through the integration registry, is what we call it, but it's through that integrations tab inside of admin UI. I will show that.
Beta means that the code base is in production though, right?
The code base is in production. It's passed our testing. We're hammering out a couple other things, and we wanted to see. We have 3 customers that have been turned on for so far, and we're getting soliciting some feedback from them to see if there's anything we can simplify, any UIs that we can clean up for what I'm about to show you.
Is there any docs on the website for it yet?
Yes. Yes. I think all of the docs should be live at this point. It all says coming soon though. So it'll have the coming soon banner at the top, and it's there. But yeah, the doc should be there from the admin and supervisor view. One of the things we're trying to finish up before beta is completed is getting the agent view there, but the doc is going to be basically the exact same as PureCloud for Chrome, PureCloud for Zendesk. So that should be fairly easy to follow, but the admin and supervisor docs are all there. admin and developer docs are all there. I'll kind of walk through that flow real quick. Just kind of intentionally skipping on that. That's out. So, like I said, it's very similar to the PureCloud custom app. So, under admin, you should see a integrations tab. And you see all the different integrations we have. There's a new integration type called Embeddable Appliance. So this is what one looks like. You have your name, you have your configuration, you have the groups that you want to have access to this app. It also has to be enabled, which I know you want to enable it before it's actually can be used. And then you upload your file. And so this is, if you want that example, like super short one, you just upload that super short one, and it's all scoped to just your org. Just your org and only the users that are part of the members of those groups you'll find here. Which that is so tiny, I apologize. Right here, it's still really tiny. But you can have up to 10 groups defined on there. And then you can have up to 5 embedded clients per PureCloud org. So you can have like a test and a staging in your production line. Does that help a little bit?
A lot of detailed questions that we don't need to get into now.
Yeah, if you have the detail.
Is this intended for URLs that are not publicly visible for internal stuff?
And if you have other, we can definitely check afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, so because right now we manage our own changes internally, so before we promote any changes to production, of course we'll test those changes in our staging kind of environment. But with this, how do we know, like, because we have to, how are we going to test it? Imagine that, I'm trying to figure out like what will be the best change management process for this.
So the idea behind the best change management that we've come up with today has been you're doing your local development, you're using the query string parameter, then you upload it to here. So you upload your file, and that's where you would have multiple. So you would have your development one, which is probably shared between your developers, and then you upload that file, you're running through tests, you say I'm dev good, and you upload it to a second one that maybe you're testing your staging environment. You maybe run your harder scale test to make sure that that 10% piece that you guys, or 5% piece that you guys are writing is solid. And then once you feel good, you take that file and re-upload it as your production, and then that's your promotion process. And so I would say that would probably be a fairly ideal change management, because you kind of have two checks and balances, right? You have, did I mess something up with accidentally hard coding local somewhere? We've all done that. Then you put in your dev and you're like, all right, I'm pretty confident on this. Let me put in a stage, let me run a battery test against it, because you never want to just push the prop. Run the battery test. All right, everyone, no butterflies in their stomach. All right, let's go. Go to prod, and you have full control over that. Okay. Other questions? Okay. Just a couple things left, and then I think we're about time. Is the things that we do, we handle off. We handle core public API feature sets that we're using. You guys don't have to worry about any of that. We handle the WebRTC handling, so we use the WebRTC SDK. We've already tied that through. We've got through the issues of like page refreshes, things like that. We handle licensing and permission. And then things we don't do, we don't embed it in your app. It's almost impossible for us to do. We don't know how that works. We are not experts in that area of how to actually get it in your app. We will tell you about the call logging information, but we can't actually write it. We don't know those APIs in. And that kind of goes through like what we're trying to do is, we built the 90%, the 95%. You guys have to do that final 5% to tie it into your system because you're the experts in that area. How do customers get it? If your partners and you're publishing on App Foundry, they get it through the App Foundry. So they can do a contact us. If they already have it, they can do a click to install things.
What else could they do here soon, Travis?
Oh, thanks, Zach. It's almost like that's a seeded question. We're working on a feature for App Foundry called free trial. So coming here soon. I'm not going to say a date unlike other people. Coming here soon, we're allowing for free trials, and the PureCloud Embeddable frameworks will also be enabled as part of those premium apps as free trials. So anyone that's interested can click a button instantly, if they have the permission, and then their subscription with a free trial for 30 days out into the future. They get 30 days to try it for free, and if they like it, then they'll start getting billed for it. If they don't like it, they contact the rep, get it off, and then they're good to go. Or not go, I guess. So that's kind of where we're going with it with the whole premium app. Like I said, this is private embeddable. It's coming soon. It's a stepping stone. If you have any questions, these are the two spots where I put the documentation for the code examples today. Everything we do is on the help.mypurecloud.com and on developer.mypurecloud.com for the dev side of the house. Those two examples are hosted there now. They'll stay there. We'll also move them over to the PureCloud GitHub so that they're available. All right. I'll stay around for questions, but thanks for stopping in.